My name is Frank. I've always been a man who preferred blueprints to stories. Give me a structural map and I can tell you exactly where the weight falls. But when I returned to Blackwood Creek after my grandfather Silas died, I realized that some weights aren't carried by beams. They're carried by blood. The house sat on a ridge like an old dog guarding a grave. I hadn't been back in a decade. My father, as usual, was away on business. That was the phrase my childhood was built on. He was a phantom who appeared once a quarter with expensive gifts and a distracted look in his eyes, leaving my mother to manage the sprawling, decaying history of the estate alone. When I pulled into the driveway, three people were waiting for me. One, my mother, Eleanor. She looked smaller than I remembered, her hands constantly smoothing her apron, a nervous habit she developed years ago to keep the silence at bay. Two, Sarah, my fiancée, a city girl who looked at the overgrown weeds of the estate with a mixture of pity and fascination. She was my anchor, the one who reminded me that I had a life waiting for me 300 miles away. Three, Leo, my best friend. He had never left the creek. His hands were calloused from working the local mill, and his eyes held the weary look of someone who knew all the town's secrets but didn't have the heart to tell them. "You shouldn't have come back, Frank," Leo said, half joking as he helped me with my bags. But his eyes weren't laughing. "This place, it has a way of locking the doors behind you." The first few days were spent sorting through the mundane, old furniture, dusty ledgers, and my mother's endless tea. But on the third night, I found the dead space. As an architect, I noticed when a house doesn't add up. The measurements of the library didn't match the exterior wall of the hallway. There was a 4-foot gap that didn't exist on the blueprints. I found the mechanism behind a row of law books. The wall didn't creak. It slid open with a terrifying, oiled silence. Inside wasn't gold or jewelry. It was a room filled with journals, leather-bound, numbered, and written in my grandfather Silas's cramped, precise handwriting. I sat on the floor, the dust of 50 years coating my lungs. I opened journal number 12, September 14th, 1974. The foundations of the new town hall were poured today. The mayor thinks he bought my silence with the timber contract. He doesn't realize that I didn't just pour concrete. I poured the truth into those trenches. If they ever dig deep enough, they won't find rebar. They'll find the reason why the Miller boy never came home. My heart hit my ribs like a hammer. The Miller boy was Leo's uncle, the town's great tragedy, the boy who ran away 50 years ago. I looked up to see my mother standing in the doorway of the secret room. She didn't look surprised. She looked exhausted. "Your father called," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He heard you were poking around the library. He's coming home, Frank, for real this time, and he told me to tell you, close the book." Now I'm standing at a crossroads. The loyalty. If I burn these journals, my father stays powerful, my mother stays safe in her quiet life, and the town continues its peaceful lie. The truth. If I show these to Leo, I destroy the foundation of this town. I might even destroy my own father. Sarah is sitting in the kitchen, oblivious, planning our wedding. Leo is outside, fixing my car, still grieving an uncle he never met. And somewhere on the road, my father is driving toward us, coming to protect a secret that has already started to bleed through the pages. The air in Blackwood Creek always tasted like damp cedar and old wood smoke, but that night it felt like it was choking me. My father had arrived 2 hours earlier. He didn't even take off his coat. He just stood in the center of the library, his shadow stretching long and jagged across the floorboards. He looked at the open, hidden door, then at me. There was no, "How are you, son?" or "I'm sorry for your loss." "Silas was a storyteller, Frank," he'd said, his voice as cold as a mountain stream. "He liked to hold things over people. It was his hobby. You're an architect. You know that paper can be manipulated. Burn the journals. For your mother's sake." I didn't answer. I just walked out. I found myself standing in front of the town hall at 1 a.m. It was a stately building, brick and mortar, designed by my grandfather in the 70s. I had always admired its symmetry. Now looking at it through the lens of journal number 12, it looked like a tomb. I let myself in with the master key I'd taken from Silas's office. The silence inside was heavy, The kind of silence that feels like someone is holding their breath. Flashlight cutting through the dark. I pulled a set of the original 1974 blueprints I'd brought with me. As I traced the lines of the foundation walls, I saw it. In the original plans, the northeast corner of the sub-basement was supposed to be a solid concrete pier. But when I tapped on the wall in that exact spot, the sound wasn't the dull thud of 6 feet of solid pour. It was hollow. My grandfather hadn't just built a building, he'd built a vault. And according to the journals, the Miller boy, Leo's uncle, wasn't the only thing buried in the history of this town. You always were too curious for your own good, Frank. I spun around. Leo was standing at the bottom of the stairs. He wasn't holding a flashlight, just a heavy wrench from his truck. His face was unreadable in the dark. I saw your father's car at the house, Leo said quietly. He looked like he was ready to kill someone. And then I saw you sneaking out the back. Leo, listen to me, I started, my heart racing. The journals, they talk about your uncle, about this building. Leo walked closer, his boots crunching on the grit of the basement floor. He looked at the hollow section of the wall I'd just identified. The whole town knows the Sinclair family built this place on secrets, Frank. We just didn't think you were part of it. I'm not, I snapped. I'm trying to find the truth. The truth is dangerous, Leo whispered. If you open this wall, there's no going back. Your father, the mayor, my boss at the mill, they're all tied to what happened in '74. If you break this concrete, you break the town. I looked at the wrench in Leo's hand, then at the wall. Behind me, I heard the faint sound of a car pulling up outside, the low, aggressive hum of my father's engine. He hadn't stayed at the house. He had followed me. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from Sarah. Frank, where are you? Your mom is terrified. Come home. I stood between my best friend, who was grieving a past he couldn't touch, and my father, who was coming to bury the future. Give me the wrench, Leo, I said, reaching out my hand. Leo didn't move. His knuckles were white around the grip of the wrench. In the dim spill of my flashlight, his eyes looked like two dark pits of conflict. No, Frank, he whispered, his voice cracking. If you do this, my mother's pension disappears. The mill closes. This town is a house of cards, and you're trying to kick the table. Just let it stay buried. Before I could argue, the heavy oak doors of the town hall upstairs groaned open. The sound echoed down the stairwell like a gunshot. Thud, thud, thud. The rhythm of the footsteps was unmistakable. Heavy, expensive leather soles. My father. Hide, I hissed. Leo didn't hesitate this time. We scrambled into the shadows behind a row of massive, dormant HVAC units. The air back there was thick with the smell of grease and stagnant water. I pressed my back against the cold metal, my heart drumming so loudly I was sure it would give us away. My father entered the basement. He didn't turn on the overhead lights. He had a high-powered tactical light that cut through the darkness with surgical precision. He didn't wander. He walked straight to the northeast corner, the hollow pier. He stood there for a long time, just staring at the concrete. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a burner phone. He dialed a number on speaker. After 2 rings, a gravelly voice answered. He's at the hall, isn't he? The voice asked. It was the mayor. He was, my father replied, his voice devoid of emotion. I saw his car around the corner, but the basement is empty. He hasn't touched the wall yet. Silas was a fool to keep those journals, Arthur, the mayor growled. We should have burned that house down the day he died. Silas was my father said. And for a second, I thought I heard a flicker of humanity, but it vanished. But Frank is my son. I'll handle him. If he finds what's behind this pour, the statute of limitations on the 1974 accident won't matter. The feds will be here within 48 hours. And the Miller boy? The mayor asked. My father sighed, a sound of immense weariness. The Miller boy was an accident. The cover-up was the choice. Make sure the night watchman stays away for the next 2 hours. I'm going back to the house to find those journals. If they aren't in the secret room, I'm taking Frank to the old quarry to talk. We waited until the sound of his engine faded into the distance. Leo was shaking next to me. The wrench had slipped from his hand and lay silent on the dirt. An accident, Leo breathed, his voice trembling with rage. They called my uncle's life an accident. I stood up, my legs feeling like lead. I looked at the wall, then at the stairs. My father was heading back to the house. Sarah was there. My mother was there. And he was looking for the journals I had hidden under the floorboards of my childhood bedroom. Leo, I said, my voice hardening. He thinks I'm the only one who knows. He doesn't know you heard every word. Leo picked up the wrench. This time he didn't hold it like a tool. He held it like a weapon. He's going back to your house, Frank. He's going to hurt your mother to get those books. We have 30 minutes, I told Leo. My voice felt like it was coming from someone else. He has to drive back, search the library, realize the journals aren't there, and then go to my room. We break the wall now. Leo didn't hesitate this time. The rage had replaced his fear. He swung the heavy wrench with a guttural roar, striking the center of the hollow pier. Crack. The concrete didn't crumble like a solid block. It splintered like a shell. Behind the thin layer of finishing cement was a cavity, a void that shouldn't have been there. We worked in a fever, pulling away chunks of gray stone until a rusted metal door was revealed. It was a small, heavy-duty safe door, the kind used in old banks, set deep into the foundation. I used a crowbar from the maintenance shelf to pry it open. The hinges screamed in protest, a sound that seemed to echo all the way back to 1974. Inside weren't just more journals. There was a rusted metal lunchbox, the kind schoolboys used back then, with the initials DM, Danny Miller, scratched into the lid. Beside it lay a heavy, blood-stained lead pipe wrapped in a tattered piece of a Sinclair Timber Company uniform. He didn't just hide the body, Leo whispered, his flashlight shaking as it illuminated the lunchbox. He kept the evidence. Your grandfather kept it all as collateral. He owned the mare because he held the murder weapon. I felt sick. My family's legacy wasn't built on hard work or vision. It was built on a lead pipe and a dead boy. We didn't have time to process the horror. I grabbed the lead pipe and the lunchbox, shoving them into my backpack. Leo, call the state police, not the local guys. The mayor owns them. Call the sheriff in the next county over. Tell them everything. I sprinted to my car. As I sped toward the house, I saw the lights of the estate flickering through the trees. My father's black sedan was parked sideways across the driveway, blocking the exit. I ran through the front door. The house was deathly quiet. "Mom! Sarah!" I shouted. I heard a muffled sob from the upstairs landing. I took the stairs 3 at a time. In the hallway, my father was standing outside my bedroom door. He held the floorboards I had pried up earlier. He had the journals in a pile at his feet and a lighter in his hand. He had Sarah by the arm. She was pale, her eyes wide with a terror I had never seen. My mother was slumped on the floor nearby, weeping into her hands. "You're late, Frank," my father said. He looked at my backpack, his eyes narrowing. "What's in the bag?" I didn't move. I stood at the top of the stairs, the weight of the lunchbox and the lead pipe heavy against my spine. "I went to the town hall, Dad. I found the hollow pier. I found Danny Miller's lunchbox." The air in the hallway seemed to freeze. My father's thumb flicked the lighter. A small orange flame danced in the dim light. "That was 50 years ago, Frank," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "It was a different world. We did what we had to do to keep this town alive, to keep you in private schools and fancy offices." "You killed a boy for a timber contract," I said, stepping forward, "and you've been killing Mom slowly for 40 years by making her live in a house built on his grave." "Give me the bag," he commanded, stepping toward me, dragging Sarah with him. "Give me the bag and we can forget this happened. I'll take the journals and we'll go back to being a family." "We were never a family," I replied. "We were just a structure with no heart." At that moment, the distant wail of sirens began to crest over the hill. Leo had made the call. I didn't hesitate. To an architect, every structure has a pressure point, and my father's was his belief that everyone had a price. He thought my price was my career or my legacy. He didn't realize it was the woman standing terrified in his grip. "Let her go, Dad," I said, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous calm. "I'm putting the bag down." I slowly slid the backpack off my shoulders. The heavy thud of the lead pipe hitting the floorboards echoed through the hallway, a dull, metallic sound of 50 years of guilt finally landing. I pushed the bag toward him with my foot. He didn't let go of Sarah immediately. He watched me, his eyes searching for a trick. Then with a sharp shove, he pushed her toward me. I caught her, pulling her behind me, my heart hammering against my ribs. "The journals, too," he barked, gesturing to the pile at his feet. He dropped the lighter. The dry, yellowed paper of Silas's journals caught instantly. A small flick of orange turned into a hungry blue flame. He snatched up my backpack, his face contorted with a frantic, desperate hope. He thought he was winning. He thought that by burning the paper and holding the pipe, he could reset the clock. But he forgot one thing. I wasn't just Silas's grandson. I was an engineer. I knew about timing. The sirens weren't distant anymore. They were screaming up the driveway, the blue and red lights strobing against the bedroom wallpaper like a fever dream. "You don't have time, Arthur," my mother said. She had stood up, wiping her eyes, her voice suddenly clear and cold. It was the first time I'd ever heard her call him by his name instead of your father. "The state police are in the yard." Leo told them everything. My father looked at the bag, then at the burning journals, then at the window. He realized the trap. He had the evidence in his hand, but he was standing in the middle of a crime scene with a literal fire at his feet. The bedroom door was kicked open by two state troopers. "Drop the bag, hands where we can see them." My father stood there, the backpack clutched to his chest like a shield. For a second, I thought he might run, but there was nowhere to go. The legacy was a dead end. He dropped the bag. He didn't fight. He just looked at me, not with anger, but with a profound, chilling emptiness. "You destroyed it, Frank," he whispered as they ratcheted the cuffs onto his wrists. "You destroyed everything I built for you." "No, Dad," I said, holding Sarah tight. "You built it. I just showed everyone the cracks." Took 6 months for the dust to settle in Blackwood Creek. The town hall's northeast pier was excavated under a court order. They found what was left of Danny Miller. The town didn't break, like Leo feared, but it changed. The mayor resigned. The Sinclair Timber Company was liquidated to pay for the decades of environmental and civil damages. I didn't stay to see the end of the trials. Sarah and I moved back to the city. I still work as an architect, but I've moved away from luxury high-rises. I design community centers and public spaces now, places where nothing is hidden, where the glass is clear, and the foundations are honest. My mother moved out of the estate. She lives in a small cottage near the coast now. She doesn't smooth her apron anymore. She just sits on her porch and watches the tide, finally at peace with a silence that isn't filled with secrets. Leo and I still talk. He used his settlement to buy the local mill and turn it into a worker-owned cooperative. He named the break room after his uncle. I kept one thing from that house, a single unburnt page from Silas's final journal. It wasn't about a crime or a secret. It was a sketch of a bridge. Underneath it, he had written, "A structure is only as strong as the truth it stands on." I framed it and hung it in my office. It serves as a reminder that as an architect and as a man, my job isn't just to build things that stay up. It's to make sure that what's underneath can handle the light of day.